Management Symposium last month on the major focus of frictionless acquisition. Excuse me. What do you mean by the term, and how will it transform acquisition?
Well, I'm glad you started the question that way. What do you mean by the term frictionless acquisition? Because it gives me a chance to talk about the birth of that concept, why we thought that this was an important thing to, important point of focus. Frictionless acquisition was born out of a simple concept, born out of an operator's perspective and understanding that the customers that we serve, or customers who we serve, want us to reduce the time between I need and I got. Originally I said I want and I got, but I got some pushback from staff saying, really focus on the need part, and I get that, bona fide needs. Between I need and I got, shortening that time. Being able to compare ourselves to the private sector or to the, commercial activities. Being able to compare ourselves to the private sector, understanding that if an employee buys a thing, let's say for sake of conversation, buys reams of paper at the office, and if it takes 2 weeks to do that at the office, but then that employee goes home and with the click of a few apps can get that paper at their door the next day, they wonder why. What is wrong with government? And that's a fair question. That's a fair challenge to lay at our feet. What is wrong with government when we can't deliver at the same speed as private sector for things like that? So frictionless acquisition was born of that. But it became more of a philosophy at some point as well. So with frictionless acquisition, we want to be able to remove the impediments that lengthen the time between I need and I got, but also remove other impediments that put friction, bureaucratic inertia into the process of getting things done, whether it's the time to deliver the goods and services our customers need, or whether it's the time for various vendors to enter the system to be able to solicit the government and sell their goods and services. So with frictionless acquisition, we decided that it really was a broader concept, a broader vision, taking the friction out of all the points in acquisition to make us operate more efficiently, more like the private sector where we can, particularly when dealing with commercial items. And so frictionless acquisition became, the mantra became to be able to deliver at the same speed as the private sector when dealing with commercial items, and when not dealing with commercial items, being able to manage customers' expectations, being able to set, and that means being able to establish or use tools like plans of action and milestones, establish regular dialogue, have a good program discipline, much like the Department of Defense does. But we want that across of the federal government. So there's good program management discipline, and we understand this is the time to take this thing that does not yet, this is the time it takes to deliver this thing that does not yet exist.
Well, that's a wonderful explanation of frictionless acquisition. Certainly for our professional development edition of Contract Management Magazine, you'll start to hear some of these tones of how leaders such as Dr. Wooten are challenging ourselves to do better. So great lessons learned here and great points. So, but I do want to move on a little bit further along with frictionless acquisition, because from it was also born the cross-agency priority, or CAP goal. So can you explain a little bit about what it is and what you've made progress on so far with this initiative?
Well, so a cross-agency priority goal, or CAP goal for short, the acronym, is a goal that we set in place to impact all of the federal agencies, to span across the agencies, so that we at OMB are adding a different perspective of leadership across the federal agencies, as opposed to the structured stovepipe of managing different things within agencies. And for contracting in particular, agencies have their own contracting authorities that flow down from the president to, particularly to the secretaries in those larger agencies, and that's how it flows. It doesn't flow through me. I merely have the responsibility, the statutory responsibility to establish guardrails, to say, okay, you have this authority that flows down from the president, but this is how you must use those authorities. So we establish those guardrails. So frictionless acquisition, though, or rather, as a cap goal, frictionless acquisition seeks to ensure that we're sharing some innovations that allow us to reduce the time between I need and I got. And we have great tools to be able to do that. We have the periodic table and I'm gonna forget the rest of the term, but the periodic table, something that we need to do a better job of sharing as a resource to the rest of the acquisition community, because it allows us to share across agencies so that we don't have this continual problem. Here's a good example. One agency might be able to buy those notional widgets that we hear about in business school, and it takes them 7 months, while another agency could buy the same widgets and take only 7 weeks. Yet, I would argue that the reign of regulations fall equally upon all heads. So why does it take one 7 months when the other can do it in only 7 weeks? By sharing information, I think that is helpful. It also helps us with encouraging or nudging contracts professionals and other acquisition team members to reach beyond their comfort zones and understand, by the exemplars that they see us talk about, understand they're still remaining within the regulatory space.
It's exciting to hear about that. And for those of you who participated in GCMS, we're able to hear you speak with Soraya Correa and Barry Berkowitz with more on how this cross-agency priority or approach is working and the CAP goals. Very delighted to hear about how the community can come together and share those lessons learned, because it may not be that someone's not doing the best they possibly can. They may have not be aware of what someone else learned and was able to apply to make it work faster. So wonderful topic, and we're delighted that this initiative is producing great fruit.
Well, thank you. And one thing I'd add to the whole CAP goal initiative is that as we flesh that out programmatically, and I say we, the Office of Federal Procurement Policy team has done a great deal of that work. The concept was one thing, but the way the concept is being implemented is a far greater leadership effort than I can claim responsibility for, or even OFPP can claim responsibility for. And I think that's the way it needs to be. Everybody is saying, I get it. Here are some solutions. This fits within, this helps advance the goal of frictionless acquisition. That's what we want to see.
Delighted to hear that, delighted.